All right. Good morning. Good morning. I am very excited to talk today with somebody that I have DM'd with for years, like actually literally years. And here we are. We're finally making it happen from a company that I have been following probably for a decade, which, which we'll talk about in a second. Karen, good morning. How are you? No, good afternoon for you. It's afternoon.
It's afternoon for me. It's like 3 o'clock.
Holy smokes.
Delighted to finally see you in the semi flesh. So really delighted that we finally got to do this. Thanks for
Yeah,
having me.
it's exciting, especially because there's not a lot of situations where I've actually followed a company from like its early days. I remember coming across. So for everyone, Karen works at Intercom. She is the VP of research of the RAD team, which includes research, which we'll talk about. Um, but I remember the like first time I saw the intercom widget in the bottom corner of a screen, and I was like, "Oh, that's interesting,"
Yeah.
you know. And then there were a bunch of copycats that followed afterwards and whatnot. But like it was one of those really interesting moments where like the paradigm of how I thought the internet worked broke
Yeah.
because you could talk to somebody on the other side. You know, it wasn't a static website.
No, it was, yeah, we were trying to really make business personal back then with the widgets. And as you said, a lot of copycats followed, but yeah, fundamentally shifted how us humans connect with businesses, with businesses online. And so can you remember when that was? Can you remember how long ago that was?
Oh man, it was at least it's got to be no later than like 2016. I feel like.
Nice. That's about
Uh,
when I joined. That was the year I joined. Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
how big was it back then?
When I joined, there was about 150 people. We're
150
about a
people.
thousand now. Um, yeah, so we didn't have a London office. I think we had like two or three products, about 15 million in ARR or something at the time.
Damn.
Yeah, a lot has changed. New locations, new offices, AI, you name it. A lot has changed
Yeah, I
over
will.
those years.
We have a lot to talk about. I think first of all, it's very poetic that like an Irish group of lads came together to make like internet businesses more personable. Like that seems about right. But then I think I was going to say the thought lost me. It's fine. I'll come back to it.
No
But
problem.
what I think would be pretty neat to hear a little bit about before we get into the stuff. There's stuff I want to talk about. I want to talk about RAD and why you have a research team called RAD, which is a pretty cool name for it. We want to talk about the stuff that you've done with Fin, which I think is really interesting.
Mhm.
But before we do that, was Intercom your first research gig? What was that story into the field for you?
Yeah. Intercom was not my first research gig, and I would argue it's not really a research gig, which we can talk about in a
Oh,
second. Ooh, spoiler! Maybe you
spicy.
shouldn't have got me on this
Here we
podcast.
go.
Um, so I lead a function now called RAD, and the reason why it's called RAD is because it's research and data science, and we should talk
Yeah.
about that because we've kind of really intentionally brought these two disciplines together.
Hmm.
They didn't always exist together in Intercom, so we can talk a little bit about why we did that. But I've been here for almost 10 years, and before that, my background is a bit more academic. So I have a PhD in computer science, and I spent the 8 years prior to Intercom in industrial research labs. So I was at
Okay.
Yahoo Labs. Do you remember Yahoo?
Okay.
In the Bay Area, and then I was at Telefonica Research in Barcelona, and mainly like research science, like mixed methods, somewhere at the intersection of HCI and data science, applied machine learning, computer
Yeah.
science, all trying to mine and understand mobile user behaviors in particular with a view to like driving product innovation is the rough kind of broad category. So a lot of stuff on how do teenagers use their smartphones?
Hmm.
How do people search the web on their mobile phone pre-iPhone?
By the way, that teenager on the smartphone stuff is scary business. I got a recent download from someone who leads research at Snapchat that does a lot of similar stuff because they're always looking for these like emergent behaviors and whatnot. I found it terrifying and overwhelming.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'd want to go back and understand that now.
No,
Now that I have two children who are not yet teenagers, I definitely don't want to go there. But at the
no,
time,
don't.
this was all,
Ignorance and
smartphones.
ignorance is bliss.
Yeah, until I get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, yeah, all at this stage when smartphones were only coming out and we were really trying to understand, yeah, emerging patterns. But yeah, don't want to really know today. But always at that kind of intersection, and then I got what I would call maybe a real job, as in I kind of went then the other end, which was, yes, I worked with product teams and was very fortunate to work with a lot of folks that where we actually had some of our insights drive some of the product innovation at
Hmm.
Yahoo. Intercom was appealing for lots of different reasons, like way smaller than any company I'd ever worked for. And the gig wasn't research when I started. The gig was what was pitched to me at the time was we need someone to come in and lead the quant side of the house, and that was product analytics. And
Hmm.
so, and I adopted data engineering and kind of built that out from almost kind of nothing. There was one or two folks, and so I led the product analytics and data engineering teams for maybe the first like 4 or 5 years, and we partnered a lot with research. And then
Ah.
we opted to bring these two functions together because when they work together, magic kind of happened, and we can talk
When
about
you were
that.
doing industrial research, was it like primarily qualitative or was it primarily aiming to do more quantitative style work? Was it kind of a mix?
It was a mix, and I think this is where maybe the rad piece comes into it too. So I've always liked the end-to-end piece. So we would do things like mine the massive behavioral data sets that the likes of Yahoo would have.
Right.
We would build apps that would track behavior and install them with consent on participants' kind of phones. We would do
Yep.
deep interviews to kind of understand some of their needs. We would maybe do some in situ studies. There might be some large scale surveys. And it was about wrangling all of that and trying to paint as coherent a picture as possible to
Yeah.
drive some change or affect some change. And that's exactly what we're trying to do here in Intercom. It's just different data sources, different kind of use cases. But it's the thing for me is it is the not half stories. It's you're
Yeah.
trying to tell a much more grounded, fuller story.
And it's a much more compelling story when you have all the pieces. Like um, we had a talk during Research Week about using user logs for
Mm.
research and whatnot. And uh, I had a friend of mine who runs a research team at a big company who said, like, doesn't everybody like use user logs? And no, not everybody. Definitely not everybody uses user logs.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things where when you have them, I've used them, but not with the huge data sets. When
Hmm.
like alpha and beta programs where I have really small
Yeah.
numbers, where I would honestly read them. Right, I'll be like,
Yeah.
okay, you turned on the device and then you did the thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and such an incredible source of information. It made my interviews so much better,
Yeah.
right? Because I
Yeah.
could see, okay, the device was on for like 5 minutes last week,
Yeah.
so like,
Yeah.
I don't really care what you say about how much fun you had with it because you didn't use it that much. So let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So that mixing, I think, is it's obviously very powerful. Why do you think like it's not? I know of a few teams that have this kind of like
Mm.
close knit partnership, but I wouldn't say that it's the most common thing in the world. Do you have any thoughts on why that is?
I'd love to have a good answer here. I don't. I think it
Yeah.
is still standard, at least in a lot of the leaders, either research or data science leaders that I would interact with. Typically, research
Hmm.
sits. The most I've heard of is it's with design, or maybe in product as its own kind of thing. And data science tends to either be part of a central org,
Yeah.
central analytics or data org, can maybe report to a COO or a CFO, or that can live anywhere, or maybe engineering sometimes as well, depending on the flavor.
Yep.
Um, I don't know, and it's funny because um, I'm definitely getting more DMs on LinkedIn from folks saying we want to do this. So can
Ah.
so there's more companies exploring it. I think now, which is great to see. Um, I'm not. I don't have a very good answer for why. And also, research and design, there's definite synergies there, and certainly when you think about traditional UX kind of research, I think one of the things here though is we're not just conducting research of our product and of our
Yeah.
customers. we're actually conducting research of the market and with
Hmm.
buyers, and we're looking at things like um, pricing and cost to serve, and we're looking at general kind of market needs and behaviors, which are especially important now that we're in this kind of AI first world. Like, who knows what these agents and technologies are going to do to general behavior? And so, looking at the market, I think, is important there too. We also have folks working directly with customers,
Yeah.
um, trying to help them drive more success with Fin. And again, that's a different type of research and analytics compared to like more maybe traditional, where you're focused mainly on understanding use of the product and optimizing and informing product strategy and things, which we do lots of,
Yeah.
but it's much more broad. And I think when it's broader, I think that's where it's even more important, I think, to bring more of those kind of skills and the what and the what and the why together. I also think people just don't really know. Like a lot of we've had researchers join the team who've never really worked with analytics or data science before, and data scientists are the same. So there's a little bit of who are these people and what do they do, and so.
Yeah.
But we're lucky that most of the folks who join, they join because we're a unified function, and they often
Yeah.
have worked or they want to. So it's kind of like, hey, I'm really curious. I want to explore what working with a researcher might look like, or vice versa.
There's two things I want to touch on. One is, how do you think about like organizing? So I presume, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you have people on your team that are a little bit more qualitatively oriented with their like core skill set, and you have some folks that don't really love talking to people but love doing like SQL queries or something. I don't know what the cool quants do these days. Um, do you? Uh, I think like there would be a natural desire to have like the I don't know how many folks are on the team, but if you had a manager, you'd have like the qual manager with the qual people reporting in, and then the quant manager with the quant people reporting in.
Mhm.
Is that pragmatic, or is it actually something that you really try and mix up a lot more, and you kind of have like one leveling framework? You just mush them all together. You want them to just intermingle
Mhm.
constantly. How do you organize that group of people?
That is a great question, and it's evolved over time, and I'm sure it will continue. We have okay, so we operate in what we call a centralized, dedicated partnership model. So central function, single leader in me, and standard career pathing. So the same ladder. There's slight differences in some of the things when we get into maybe craft, maybe a little bit on the technical skills, but generally speaking, we're kind of saying roughly there's like a mastery thing, roughly there's a partnership and influence thing, roughly there's a there's impact irrespective of where that comes from. So we've standardized all of our career levels and pathing. And then we point groups of researchers and data scientists towards what we call these like durable domains or strategic areas.
Yeah.
And so they are things like product, they are things like Fin and kind of R&D services, almost like forward deployed, like working directly with
Hmm.
customers. There's like growth, web, pricing. We have folks partnering with sales, we have folks partnering with marketing. So, and we toyed with lots of ideas about how we would set this up. We are not in, I think, what you were hinting at there, which is like a fully blended model where we have a RAD leader
Hmm.
managing researchers and data scientists over a domain. That's
Hmm.
not what we've done. What we have is we have data science leaders pointed at these domains,
Hmm.
and they manage the data scientists pointed at those domains.
Yeah.
And then we have researchers pointed. There are less researchers than there are data scientists, which we can get into in a minute if you'd like. But
Yeah.
we have researchers pointed at those domains, and then we have a head of global research,
Yeah.
and Caitlin, and she kind of leans into definite areas. So she leans in heavily across product and marketing. We did toy with the idea of having like should we just have like a single RAD manager, and researchers and data scientists would all report up to those folks. But there's pros and cons, and there's no such thing. You know this. There is
I know where
no
you're going
such
with
thing
this.
as like an ideal
Yeah.
setup. We thought that made the most sense for now, in particular because of the level of. It's almost like the level of technical rigor and complexity on some of the data science pieces that we're doing. I think it requires, like, I've actually hired a new data science director over product to really help there.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get there. What we are doing though is like Caitlin has brought in a lot more quant upskilling, a lot
Yeah.
more like stats to the team, and maybe we'll get into it in a few minutes. But I do think the AI tooling is completely blurring the lines here. So we have
100%.
like researchers doing analysis and data scientists on customer calls, and so it's all getting a bit fuzzy, which we're loving.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to push on. And maybe we'll get to the point there. And we've got a great research manager, Cormac, on the team, and again, he's nibbling away at those directions, and I think that's what we're trying to foster. And then, but the goal is ultimately it's fully blurred, it's
Yeah.
fully blended, you know. But we're just, I think it takes intentionality to build towards that. But there are pros and cons regardless of the setup. That's the one we have right now.
I think, it's easy to look at. I think, especially coming up to the last couple of years, we've built, I feel like, an abundance of structure around roles and around career progression and around skill sets and all that sort of stuff. And one of the things that AI has done, and some of it is just the kind of economic environment sort of thing like that. But one of the things that I think it's done is it's really shattered all that structure. It's like an earthquake, essentially, where, and that's scary because we had all this nice structure before. And like, before you could go to your manager and be like, all right, I'm like leveling a 3.5 on stakeholder management, which means I'm like, I have quality relationships with stakeholders, but not superior trusted relationships with stakeholders. So this quarter, I'm going to work on getting superior trusted relationships with stakeholders. Like it got that granular. I don't know if that's true at Intercom, but I know at some places it got extremely granular. And one of the things that now that all this is kind of shaken up, it is super uncomfortable, I think. But on the plus side, it's like, the Game of Thrones thing, chaos is a ladder. Like, okay, like, look, a lot of the rules are gone. A lot of the structures that could have held you back are gone. If you want to spread your wings and fly in weird directions and do really neat things, like you have almost like this natural permission to do so in a way, I
Yeah.
feel like, and these blurred lines, like now it sounds like if you're a qual person and you just want to start making little stats applications that you can use using Claude Code and just start dumping in, like that maybe is doable now. But whereas before you might get shut down on that.
Yeah. I think there's a few bits there. I think that we didn't get to the box ticking that it sounds like you were kind of talking about before, and this is the age where you're really trying to, when you're coaching and working with folks, and like
Yeah.
obviously progression matters and growth matters, but box ticking is not what anyone. It's never a good thing to kind of foster. And I think some of
Yeah.
those like very rigorous, like your 3.5 on this or your 4 point this implies once you get to a 5, beautiful things will happen and you will all of a sudden be
Yeah.
promoted. And that's not always what happens. I think what on the kind of career side, I think the way in which we measure impact here has fundamentally been the same.
Yeah.
Like it's persisted, it's kind of stood the test of time. And that is like tangible impact. And we can talk about like what that means. And I think some of the competencies and how someone executes maybe leads to that.
Yeah.
Stakeholder like feedback or influence, like we would generally, let's say if you were promoting someone to a staff researcher, like there would be people advocating for that person because of the level of impact they have had in their product area and their kind of
Can we
pricing
unpack
strategy.
that just a little bit? Like getting really granular. What are the kinds of things that they're saying where you hear that and you're like, cool, Jill is ready for that next, like clearly whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have an anchor like on our career ladders. Our staff and principal level roles across research and data science are a step change. Like
Yeah.
they are not. This isn't the same as going from a mid level to like a senior. It's a step change, and typically it means in the scope of your work, the scale of your impact, and the leadership that you demonstrate, both in terms of like mapping your own path, but also in the influence you have with the team around you. So
Mm-hmm.
normally for someone who's been promoted to staff level, there would be strong advocates partners saying things like, I wouldn't have been able to drive this decision forward without person X.
Mm,
We wouldn't have been able to see that blind spot around the corner without the level of insights. It typically means folks going above and beyond, so not just delivering finding X. It's typically really being a thought partner and helping folks think through options and maybe landing on tangible recommendations. And it's normally pointing to pretty big, gnarly things at that kind of staff and principal level where you are talking about like pricing strategy,
yeah.
product investment decisions, like
Hmm.
ideal customers that we're going to kind of target, tooling that equips our customer facing teams to have the strategic conversations that they need to have. And typically it's partner feedback attesting to some of those things. And for the very strong folks, it's often proactive. It's often the ping of like, this person is really, really, really up leveled our whole area. Um, so we talk about impact, and maybe that's like a critical decision, scaling of insights to bringing insights to more teams that help them make better decisions and drive more success with our customers. But there's also the behavioral side. So we have a really strong set of values that kind of are ingrained across the company. And again, it's folks who really, it sounds a bit cheesy, but like live and breathe or really like show up living those things. And
Yeah.
they are things like impatience and customer obsession, and high standards. And so again, those folks would typically demonstrate those things. So yes, the world around us has changed, and maybe how we get there has differed. And we have blown up so much process and the way in which we've worked in the last kind of 6 to 12 months. Like
Yeah.
nothing looks like it did a year ago in Intercom. Marketing has fundamentally shifted. Triads aren't really a thing anymore. We have this like whole work stream system and product. So it's all fluid and agile, but incredibly nimble.
Yeah.
And it means we can react to whatever we need to react to because so much is changing. We're operating in a highly competitive market as well. But those things haven't shifted. The
Yeah.
environment has shifted, but those things haven't shifted. So that's kind of how we think about it.
That's good. I want to talk with you about Fin
Mm-hmm.
because I think this is also another big growth area where there's, I think, a lot of research work to be done from like, not just like from like an experience point of view, but how do you make these things? Where do we input in the engineering process? Where do we input in the like R&D process that maybe even precedes that? How do we understand, like you're saying, markets and stuff like that, where we want to deploy these things or prioritize which parts of the market to deploy? Um, where does RAD play a role in that work? Other
Mm-hmm.
than I don't think that like the fundamental machine learning stuff is within your org, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So where does RAD play an org in supporting the creation of something like Fin? Because I think it's been pretty successful. I think you guys are the market leader in the customer support automation. Um,
Yeah.
how?
Yes, it's kind of been a wild ride over 2 years. So I think we launched Fin in March 2023. And yeah, so Fin is our AI agent, automatically answers inbound like customer support queries, can take action, can resolve. And so you end up with these fascinating interactions across AI agents for customer service and human teammates,
Yeah.
who are still absolutely in the mix. So we fin our AI agent, and it can sit on top of any help desk, including our own. So like Intercom has had a help desk product for many, many, many years. So we launched in March 2023, and we had an amazing AI group who built the engine, who built all the machine learning that underpins Fin. And the one thing I just want to amplify is, out of the box, I think in the early iterations, we were at maybe it was like 20 odd, 25, 26% resolution rate. So we could resolve 25 to 26% of customers' conversations kind of out of the
Hmm.
box. And over the last couple of years, it has been like
It's at like
rigorous.
70%, right?
Yeah. I think our average right now, I think, is well over 50. I can make sure I get the stat.
Yeah.
And then we have some customers who are up at like 80, 80 plus.
Wow.
Our own internal customer support team has a resolution rate in excess of 70, an involvement rate. So this is of all the conversations that they get in, of all the support tickets or queries they get in, how many of them that just Fin get involved in, and then we look at how many of them can be resolved. So they have like 91% or something involvement rate. So Fin essentially is Intercom's like customer support team. And then there's the humans who handle all the stuff that Fin can't, but that's a much smaller proportion than it was.
Yeah.
But those improvements have all been through like rigorous methodical like experimentation, and a lot of features that were launched. We started by improving content. We added like multilingual support, so Fin can speak over 45 I think languages. We launched Fin Voice, Fin Vision, Fin Guidance. So there's where Fin Guidance is where you can tell Fin, give it instructions like speak like in certain ways, how it should handle escalations, how to address customers. Do you want it to sound a little bit more friendly? Do you want it to talk like a pirate? And you can do this, by the way. Fin is very good at taking instructions. And so all those things, all those features and functionality built methodically and experimented with methodically, because what we're trying to optimize for is, resolution rate and also customer experience. And so we're trying to always balance kind of those two things. So the AI group have built all of the kind of AI pieces, machine learning pieces, the engine. Where RAD has helped is in all the things that go into that. So, for example, in the very early days, when we first launched Fin, this was things like deciding how do we price? And that would have involved things like modeling the costs to run Fin, and then what is a good price point. We were one of the first to go to outcome-based pricing. So we
Yeah.
charge per resolutions. Understanding initial launch success and early reactions from kind of customers. That was another kind of piece. Any of the things we've launched, we typically would support and try and understand how the market and how our customers are reacting to those things. A lot of continual work in pricing, willingness to pay, cost to serve, differences across verticals and business types when it comes to their AI kind of adoption and use. Probably some of the more maybe personally interesting things are, how does a customer even adopt and deploy an AI agent like Fin? Like, where do they get started? How do they choose which types of queries to deploy Fin on first? How do they evaluate Fin's quality? What are the types of things that they look for? What is the friction point along that? When they get to a first set of conversations and they feel good about Fin and they've trained it on all the content and that content is high quality, where do they optimize? How do they optimize? And again, so we've done a lot of work, not only with product, but also directly with customers to understand like, what is that path and what does that look like? We've been doing some really interesting things recently, though, that gets much more at the end user experience of Fin. And I think there's some fascinating things here where, we're trying to really understand not only how our customers feel about Fin, but also how do their customers feel about
Yeah.
it. And some of the latest work there has been really trying to unpack the like interactional attributes that make an agent feel more human-like or feel more
Yeah.
conversational. And these are things like we've unpacked it to a few characteristics like how concise it is, or how personalized it feels, or how collaborative it feels, how much empathy it kind of shows. And there was lots of really good like mixed method work there and a great partnership with our AI designers. And they're now exploring some of these things as they think about future versions of Fin, because Fin will evolve as human behavior kind of evolves, and the team is consistently looking for ways to do that. And then the last piece, I think, big one, because we spent a lot of time on it and we have a whole group of people, is working directly with customers. So like we have data scientists in particular, but researchers are also working here. This is where we are helping individual customers understand their support tickets or like support conversations, how many of them are informational? How many of them are like action based? How many of them require
Right.
personalization? Where is the biggest opportunity to put Fin initially? What's
Yeah.
the ROI that they can expect? How might they do that? How might they optimize it? And this is where you're going really deep with individual customers to understand almost like their business, their support ecosystem, and lots of good learnings. And we have a group of folks who are loving being kind of on customer calls and working directly
Yeah.
with customers.
I think, and you can tell me whether or not you think this is accurate. There's obviously a lot of angst right now, and it's true for a lot of different roles. It's definitely true for research around, you know, AI replacing the work that researchers do. And I hear things like this, and it makes me think that we have now way more questions, right? Way
Yeah,
more questions than we had before.
yeah.
Ones that I would be shocked if AI agents in their current format or in the nearish medium maybe term would be well equipped to explore and address thoughtfully. I think the meta shift that I'm pulling out of a lot of what you're saying is, I love the term used of like this forward deployed researcher kind of thing almost, which is, we're getting, I think we're being forced, which I think is a healthy thing, to go to this implicit understanding of what makes businesses successful, i.e., when you do the forward deployed research, you're learning about all the things that are broken in your conversion, in your acquisition funnel, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Like what's breaking in the implementation, before everything before activation, after like that kind of thing. When you're talking about researching, markets and attitudes around whatever this new experience is, that's again closer to the way a business, a corporation kind of thinks. And
Mm-hmm.
we're realizing there's lots of especially qualitative work to do around there because there's a lot of change.
Yes.
um, would you say that that is an accurate characterization of the amount of research that you would like to do in an ideal world with infinite resources, that it's actually growing rather than shrinking?
Yes, I think that what I fundamentally agree with is like the amount of research questions left to answer
Mm-hmm.
continues to grow. It's
Yeah.
like an onion. Honestly, it's like an onion, and we feels like we've kind of peeled back the first
Yeah.
layer, even though we're in this a couple of years.
Yeah.
Um, and once you go in, then you're like, "Whoo, okay, we thought we understood this thing. We have way more to unpack."
Yeah.
What is shifting is the level of depth required. Um, I think has increased. I think
Mm-hmm.
the breadth of the work has increased. You hinted at this as well. Like fundamentally, what bringing an AI agent into a business does is it transforms that business. And so you've all these questions about like what does that transformation look like and how do you
Mm-hmm.
bring customers and businesses along on that journey? So never ending list. And it's part of the reason why nearly 10 years in, I'm still here. There's a never ending, apart from being bullish on the strategy,
Yeah.
and the product and adoring the people I work with, I think fascinating, never ending list of questions. You can always take one piece and say, okay, we have 5 or 6 layers deep to go. So it constantly feels like you're only scratching the surface, which is at times highly frustrating.
Yeah.
But for the most part, like loads of fun. There's great energy on the team at the moment for exactly that reason. Like there's
Yeah.
no shortage of interesting work. So we're hiring, plug, but we are hiring.
Ooh.
So I don't see that changing.
See, this
So
is so that right, like again, like to me, I think there's a shift in research going on right now in terms of what is expected from people, how we operate, the types of problems that we work on. But then I go and I talk to people I know who are working at the AI labs or at other, let's say AI native companies building AI native products or whatever.
yeah,
They're all hiring, right? So riddle me that about the whole like AI is taking all the jobs away, like all the labs are like, we need more humans. We need more people who have this skill set that I think these AI tools are not going to have, in my opinion, at least for a long time. Um, but I think it's exciting because there's new challenges to work on. And if you're younger in the field and you don't have like 20 years of like really baked in, this is how it's done, this is how I operate, and you can be like a little bit flexible in how you think and
Mhm.
absorb new information quickly, like you can probably move pretty fast.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, I think like there's a few things there on the like AI is coming for all our jobs. Look, no one has a magic 8 ball, is not the thing, or like a
yeah, yeah.
crystal ball. But
Yeah,
and I have no idea. I don't think anyone
yeah,
really has any idea. Um, Fergal, actually, our head of AI, gave us a really interesting take. He often gives us like an interesting take on what he's
yeah,
seeing. And, I'm like, oh, okay, there's some fascinating things coming.
yeah,
I'm not sure it's as long away as maybe you feel compared to what
yeah.
maybe we feel here or we believe here, because I think some of these things are definitely beliefs. We're pretty bullish. But at the same time, like I think there are things that are innately human and that won't go away. And even when we have companies who adopt Fin and are wildly successful,
Hmm.
and Fin does exactly what we want it to do, there are still humans managing the AI
Hmm.
system. There are still humans deciding
Hmm.
whether to like deploy Fin, where to optimize Fin, whether Fin is doing a good job.
Hmm.
There are new roles being created. So the folks who would have maybe worked in human support are now, we've got AI conversational designers, we have AI
Yeah,
knowledge managers, we have, there are people getting in more to customer success roles, and they're actually been able to do the things that they
yeah,
have wanted to do for years.
yeah.
And I think it's the same for functions like RAD, for research and data science. What we are seeing is blurring of roles.
Yeah.
So these tools are like lowering the barrier to entry. So we have, yeah, there's a bit of SQL, there's a bit of LLM analysis happening on the kind of research side. There's data scientists on kind of calls. There's a lot of collaboration. There's people pushing more into like these hybrid roles.
Hmm.
We're not stopping at analysis. There's like solutioning. So we're actually able to like build a prototype or build an
Oh yeah.
app, or sometimes like build a prototype on the idea side and explore some of those things. So it's
Hmm.
almost like the scope is widening or something.
Yeah.
The velocity is increased. So like a lot of our researchers now are like multi-threading way more than they used to. So they have multiple projects on the go.
Yep.
Um, and then the other thing we're doing way more of, one of the things I'm most excited by, is historically we would have done a lot of, okay, research question in, big, meaty, risky thing we're trying to unpack. Let's do
Hmm.
some net new research.
Yeah.
That's not our first port of call anymore. Let's
Mm.
mine the gold mine. Let's do way more desk research. Let's do secondary research. Let's dig into all the transcripts and all the surveys that we have, and see what we can uncover first. And so we're reusing a lot of what we have. We're using a lot of Google's Notebook LM, and we're
Hmm.
sharing those things with the business. So we have like our head of solutions and success in Google Notebook. We have same with our head of
Yeah.
customer support. So I think there's like a doing more with what we already have that these things provide. So I don't see research or data science going anywhere anytime soon. However, the thing I try to impress is, who knows what these roles will be called?
Sure.
Who knows? Will I have a job? I don't know. But I'll tell you one thing, I'm excited to discover what that looks like.
Yeah.
And if we don't need a VP or ad in the future, I would like to be the one that weighs in. Do you know, as in like, let's
Yeah.
explore what this looks like and figure it out. And I know that sounds daunting, but I think you either lean in to some of this
Mhm.
new world and explore
Yeah.
it and figure out where you can add value and depth, or you kind of maybe sit back and see what happens. And I think the sitting back and seeing what happens isn't the right move right now.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. I totally agree. I think, as much as we're learning about AI, we're also, I think, learning a lot about like us,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Because, what are a lot of the limitation, you realize like a lot of what you bring to the table as like a person, right? Is that, a deep amount of knowledge about people and what people are like, how to
Yeah.
collaborate, how to work together,
Yeah.
creativity. you know, having the courage to like push for an idea. Like these are
Yeah.
things that are maybe more human than we thought. But it's
On
definitely an exciting time. Yeah.
exciting time. On that, just one small thing. So
Yeah.
we've been trying to really lean into the AI craft kind of side, and so we set up a bunch of like rituals that allows us to experiment. And I'm trying to like lead a bit by example and at least explore some of what the individual contributors on the team are doing. So I've been playing with Google's Notebook LM myself.
Yeah.
I sat down and I did some research, not very rigorous, okay, but like some unstructured interviews with our CS team, and in particular the
Yeah.
folks who have taken on these AI roles to
Yeah.
just try and understand a little bit about their path, what they're doing, where they see this kind of future, how they got to these rates of resolution. And what was fascinating was, so sat down, transcribed, had my interview guide, checked for biases with AI. I was trying to think about how AI can improve like a researcher's workflow. Uploaded the transcripts, turned on the analysis mode, explored the podcast summaries that it's generated, which
Yep.
we love here, by the way, and a lot of our stakeholders love listening to the kind of podcast of insights.
Yeah.
Um, and started to interrogate the kind of themes. And it was very good. Okay. Like within minutes, I have like a summary, an executive summary that shares the kind of core things I found out. And then when I sat there, I'm like, I don't think Fred said that. And I don't think that's
Mm.
what Fred meant. And I
Ah.
think there's a little bit of like nuance to unpack. And it reminded me of, the Yahoo days and it was actually that teenage smartphone use study where we sat in a war room for
Mhm.
like, I think it was like a week. There was like multiple researchers, research scientists. We printed out. Frank Bentley used to have this like, we take the transcripts and things and we print them out almost like on a post-it thing. And we were
Yeah.
in this room, physically in the room, pushing these things around, building this massive affinity
Yeah.
diagram, doing this like thematic analysis. And I think what was interesting was the revelation of you can't kind of beat that in some way for sitting with and wrestling and really
Mhm.
internalizing what these things mean and what the nuance is.
Yep.
So I see a world where you really need to blend. Okay, we can't just spit the transcripts in and hope for the best. And I think some of the more manual, slightly painstaking, nostalgic sticky
Yeah.
notes
Yeah.
is probably worth still doing, And I would, yeah, I think there's a hybrid like blend. I think we probably need to get to.
I totally agree with that. I think there's going to be a lot of work where that will remain the best way to do it for a while. Funny enough, you actually touched on one of the research jobs I think is going to exist in the near term, which is, uh, pardon, this is a terrible name for it, but it's a UXR AI QA analyst or something like
Mm.
that, where I think we're going to set up these AI learning systems that are going to do a lot of the research we wish we could do, but we never had the capacity to do it. And it's just going to
Mhm.
do it in the background, right? So, like, think about what are the attitudes on this feature across 10 different market segments, right?
Mhm.
Like, I don't
Mhm.
have time to do 500 interviews. It's going to take me
Mhm.
forever and all this stuff. I think AI systems are going to be pretty good at stuff like that, or
Yeah.
maybe like automated usability testings after big releases and things
Yeah.
like that. I think we're going to need a trained researcher to go in and like pull out transcripts and look at in videos and whatever it is and
Mhm.
actually look and see if the AI is operating the way it's supposed to,
Yeah.
right? So that you can actually trust the 10,000 interviews it does in the background over the course of a week or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
And I think that'll be a fun role as you like tweak the model and tweak the prompts and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's like it's the humans managing the kind of AI again, isn't it? And there's probably different flavors of that for like a research function compared to like a
Yeah.
CS team. But it's when the AI is there, I think humans still need some level of oversight and depth because that's where the kind of nuance and the empathy ultimately kind of sits. So,
I agree.
so yeah, looking forward to seeing the job spec, Alec, and your
Yeah,
first
I'll flip that right
demo.
over to you.
Yeah.
um, cool. Well, this has been such a fun conversation. I'm glad we finally got to connect. Any final words of advice for, let's say, whether they're already working in a role or they're not, and they're thinking about how do they prepare themselves to do like even better work over this transition period.
Mhm.
Anything that comes to mind that you feel yourself passing along to your teammates to set themselves up for success?
Um, that's a great question. I mean, I think, obviously it would depend on what the person wanted to do and the type of work they like and the type of maybe company that they'd like to end up in, because not all research is the same in all
Yep.
companies. And I think the environments of company, some people thrive in an environment like Intercom, highly ambiguous, flexible, dynamic, and some people would absolutely, that would not be for them. I think there is a leaning into this stuff though.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it would be whether it's just to test the boundaries of what it can and can't do, and
Yep.
how it can and can't speed up your workflows and make you a better, faster, more intuitive researcher. I would lean into these tools, and that can be across your workflows. We haven't got into like synthetic users just yet here. I think we're kind of feels a little bit scary, but I think leaning in and seeing what the boundaries are,
Yeah.
and what these tools can do. Because certainly, if someone wants to work in tech, and anyone kind of in the AI space, I think this is like an expectation. It's actually been baked into company cultures and performance reviews. And
Yep.
so, and also, like, if that doesn't sound fascinating or interesting or exciting, then avoid those companies. Like, do not go there. That won't fit. So I would say that. If it's something specific to Intercom, I think honestly, there's a bit of the folks who tend to thrive most here lately
Yeah.
will lean into the kind of AI side, but they're also not um, in a box, as in like hey, I'm a researcher who likes to do X and Y. My skills
Mm-hmm.
are in X and Y. I really love to work with growth, or I really love to only work on pricing, or please only. I think what we kind of need is people who are hungry to answer the existential and highest risk and meaty research questions in whatever way possible, normally constrained by some speed piece. And so I think it's that, but I think that's kind of unique to Intercom, which is folks who are open to getting out of their swim lane and working on completely different things, all in service of just trying to help Intercom and our customers be successful. So, but I'm sure there's other businesses like that too. So we'll often push this in interviews, which is like how static or how maybe rigid some people are in
Yeah.
terms of what they love to work on, because it's not the type of world we're in. We're just in hey, this thing needs to be
Or in
answered.
flux.
Thing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Love that. Cool. Well, thank you so much for the convo. Can't wait to have another one soon and
Yes.
learn more about where we're going
There we
with
go.
all this
Yeah.
stuff and what the next lessons are from all this work.
Fab. Thanks so much for having me. It was great to finally get to chat live.
Cool. All right. Thanks
Okay.
everyone for tuning in.
Bye.
Catch you later.